Fiona, I understand you're leading on the slides and we'll just take the slide, yeah?
Yep, you should be able to see the slides now.
Yep.
Indeed we can.
Okay, over to you, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you, Fiona, and thank you for all of the work behind the scenes to bring us to this AGM. And if we move on to our second slide, can I take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this virtual AGM. We rather hope that holding this in a virtual format will enable more of our members to engage with us in this important constitutional element of the EAUC's work. Take this opportunity to invite you to use the chat function to put any questions you may have as we go through the agenda, and we'll do our very best to address all of those at appropriate points in our agenda. Fiona, can I just ask you to tell us of any apologies we may have received?
We haven't received any formal apologies.
So we will note that and move on then to the next slide, please. And this is just a reminder of the board. These are our board members. Pete from North East Scotland College, David from the University of Glasgow, Lawrence from South Devon College, Karen from the Woolscourt Foundation, John French from the Cambridge Innovation Park, and Eunice from the University of Chester. We have two retiring board members as of today, Simon from the University of Southampton and Peter from Canterbury Christchurch University. And of course, we extend our thanks to both Peter and Simon for their wonderful service on behalf of the AUC over their term of office. Moving to our next slide, just to remind you that we have our three branches in Ireland, in Wales and in Scotland, and our branch conveners are Damien from Ireland, John from Scotland, and Carolyn, who is the Wales branch convener. And I thank all of our board and our conveners for the service they provide on behalf of the AUC and our members. Moving on to the next slide, which is our agenda for this AGM. Of course, it is the approval of minutes from the AGM of 2020. To note that we have had our board member retirements, and therefore we had two resolutions in the AGM papers, and I'll announce the results of the elections later. I'll also be updating you on the work that we have undertaken as part of our initiative to understand and move forward on the issue of diversity in our sector. And then we will hear from the Chief Executive, Ian, who will present the annual report to you, a very full and very detailed year. And then we will, of course, consider the financial matters that David Duncan, our treasurer on the board, will present to you. We'll then consider the Climate Commission work, where we'll hear from Manveer Gill, a student climate commissioner, and I will also make some comments on the work of the Climate Commission. And then we will have the opportunity to consider any further questions that have emerged during the course of the AGM. In terms of AOB, we have been advised that there were no issues raised under AOB prior to the meeting, which was, of course, the requirement. And so we formally note that there are no outstanding matters under AOB. Could we move to the next slide, please? So as I've said, there are no issues that require us to consider any other matters arising. And as I said, we will be updating on activities throughout the course of this, particular AGM. So I'm just going to ask then that we formally approve those minutes as there have been no matters to challenge the accuracy of those minutes and no matters are arising. So with your permission, colleagues, I would like to confirm them as a true and accurate record and to sign them as such. Moving on then to the retirement of trustees. Between the 2020 AGM and this AGM, one trustee retired from the board. That was Michelle Brown, who was the Scotland Branch Convenor, who resigned on the 26th of January. On behalf of the board, I'd very much like to thank Michelle for the outstanding work she did for Eauc, UK and Ireland, and particularly for the fantastic work she did with the Scottish branch. So thank you very much, Michelle. We appointed two trustees between AGMs, Carolyn Strong, now the Wales Branch Convenor, and John Wincott, the Scotland Branch Convenor. As branch conveners, they are appointed by the branch members and automatically become trustees and directors of the Eauc. Moving to our next slide, as we've already noted, both Simon and Peter will be retiring from the board, having served their maximum term of office. And again, I'd like to extend our thanks for the time, the passion and the commitment at all of our trustees retiring in this period, and particularly Simon and Peter, who have been fantastic colleagues on the board. Moving then to the resolutions. Resolution 1 was a resolution to appoint a company director and charity trustee. This voting has been undertaken by Civica so that members can be confident of the election process. And as you will be aware, voting closed on the 15th of June. In order that we have representation from the academic arena, the board requested at least one of the new members be elected from the academic community. We received 2 applications, as you can see on screen, and I'm pleased to announce that Zoe Robinson, Professor of Sustainability and Higher Education at Keele University, has been elected by our members. On behalf of the board, I welcome Zoe to her new role as trustee and director, and very much look forward to working with her. Moving then to our second resolution, which was for the second vacancy. In this instance, the board wished to appoint a company director and charity trustee who was a sustainability professional. You see the 4 candidates that applied, and I'm very pleased to announce that Louise Ellis, Director of Sustainability at the University of Leeds, has been elected by our members. Very many congratulations to you, Louise, and I very much look forward to working with you in your term of office. Turning then to the really important issue of diversity of the board and how we are approaching the matter of diversity, both in terms of the organisation, but also our role in the wider sustainability and educational sector. We're trying to take a very long-term view here so that we understand and we act appropriately, and we properly understand why and how and what and where and when the actions we take will have the maximum impact. We're looking at ourselves. We've looked at the barriers to becoming a board member. We've looked at how we can adjust membership, adjust the processes of the board to enable those without previous board experience to join us, and to enable individuals who haven't had that experience necessarily to gain experience whilst undertaking what we're now calling an associate role. And in so doing, we've looked at how we might remove the barrier of a 5-year term of office, which we do acknowledge can be a very substantial commitment from those who consider standing and then become elected. So the associate role has been developed. An associate role is essentially a guest of the board for a 1-year term with the option of extending to a 2nd year if so wished. And in bringing this idea forward, we were hoping to attract a much wider diversity of applicants to the board, perhaps those also who couldn't commit to the full term. So these individuals who would be described as associates would not become formal trustees or directors, but they are invited by the board to join us to help shape our understanding of broad issues in the sector. And having brought this forward, we noted that we would also extend the remit to outside of the formal sector to understand how we could be enriched by ideas from beyond the higher education and sector or the further education sector. I'm very pleased to say we received 6 very strong applications, and I'm very pleased to say that those you see on screen, Neelam Chowdhury, Director, Sustainability Advisory and Certification Lead at CBRE, and Dr. Romas Malavicius, Lecturer in Sustainability and Ethics at the University of Salford, will be joining us as associates. I extend a very warm welcome to both. Now, diversity in the sector isn't just an EAUC issue. It's right across the sustainability and indeed the higher education and further education sector. So we need to explore what these reasons are that make this such an important issue. We're spending time, both the board and the staff, to talk to colleagues across the sector, to listen and to learn from their experience, to see what other organizations are doing and how we might be able to transfer their learning into our own circumstances. So we're working with organizations such as the professional bodies, for example, the Institution of Environmental Sciences, but also organizations like the Association of Colleges, the Education Training Foundation, Groundwork, Advance HE, and many others, looking to learn the lessons that they've already learned and to understand how we can bring those back to our own practices. We don't want to duplicate, we want to see where we can learn quickly from others' experiences, identify where gaps might be that we can help fill, and to ensure that we make the most impact, and particularly that we learn those lessons quickly and move to implementation as quickly as possible. We need to look at how we can encourage a wider diversity to think about sustainability as a career, and we're working with many partners such as UKRI, the COP26 Universities Network and others to promote sustainability as a career. We've also fed into BEIS, the government department's Green Jobs Task Force, and we've also submitted to the Environmental Audit Committee's inquiry on skills. And this is going to be an ongoing area of work for us. And I understand this is a passion of Neelam, so we look forward to working with her on this really important agenda as well. But we're also aware of our role on the global stage. Through our various initiatives, such as the SDG Accord, the Race to Zero, and the International Green Gown Awards, we have a great variety of universities and colleges that we engage with right across the globe. And we want to make sure that we provide opportunities for those who are less heard, and particularly those from the global south. So in our own events, we make sure that we try and implement what we say about providing those opportunities. And I hope that that will be very visible to you in our virtual conference on the 8th of July. But also where we work with others and they ask us to provide panelists, we want to make sure that we look across the world to fulfill that remit. So at the recent Climate Expo, we provided a panel of speakers, which included colleagues from the Philippines, Kenya, and Colombia. And we recognize, of course, this is a really long journey that we're on, and we need to work together to improve diversity in everything that we do. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to encourage you, our members, to get yet more involved in helping us improve our sector. So colleagues, thank you very much for listening to this part of our AGM. I'm now going to hand over to our CEO, Ian Patton, who will present the annual report of trustees to you. Thank you very much, colleague.
And Jim, thank you, and a real personal and professional thank you to you for your steady, just solid.
Down with faint praise, Ian.
No, just all the words, because it's been an exceptional year, colleagues, but we've come through it, and I would say stronger than ever and more ambitious than ever. But Jim, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you, and I must start with thanking the staff. It has, we hope, been an exceptional year, but it's certainly been a disruptive year. But EAUC embraced, virtual working for, HR and personal reasons as well as climate reasons. So it wasn't as disruptive to us as you might think, but I do want to recognise what the staff have been through and to thank them for it. But also to thank the board and to thank our members for, being a rock through this. So thank you. So Fiona, the first slide, please. We are not complacent, but to retain 94% of our membership in these challenging and what will continue to be challenging times is no mean feat. So we have to be valuable, we have to deliver value to you, and we need to hear your voice to do that. But to achieve 94% is great. And it's super to see a real growth in FE membership. Once again, we've got 209 members. And sustainability grows. Every week another agency pops up, or a well-known sector agency suddenly gets sustainability, and that's why we now have 186 strategic partners nationally and internationally. This to have a greater, connected and aligned and more impactful voice. So really pleased with that, and our strategy of having strategic relationships with companies as well as playing out, and we're delighted that it's not just about giving them a profile but also learning about their sustainability stories and how we can take the best from them. So that's good news. So next slide, Fiona, please. You probably remember this strategy. We launched it 5 years ago. We're actually on the eve of our next 5-year strategy, so please be a part of that. But I'll just take us through, in the order of these strategic objectives, some of the key activities this year. And the first, and I feel one of the most important, is that we're no longer on the sidelines shouting in, but we're actually showing clearly to the sector, to our institutional leaders, the relevance, the value of sustainability, and it's not just a nice to have. So strategic alignment with what your university, your college exists to do, and how sustainability is a critical part of achieving that is at the core of EAUC strategy. Obviously, our leadership programs, which are critical, took a hit as we reviewed how to deliver those in a virtual way. So I'm delighted that that is now absolutely up and running, and there's a very full cohort that have just started the Leadership Academy that's now online, of course, and actually a second cohort it will be starting soon, and I think there's 2 places left if you want to get in. But also the Emerging Leaders work, their Emerging Leaders program run by Worcestershire, or in partnership with Worcestershire and Coventry and others, that launches in September. So do look at that. I think we all have to dig deep on our look at our own leadership ability. This is a time of challenge, risk, but it's absolutely a time of opportunity for us. Are you ready for that? And researching with change agents through our Future Business Council, are the students, graduates coming out of our colleges, universities, ready for this new world of opportunity of building back better? So our research with change agents has been really useful, but it's actually been quite shocking. And one of the things we want to do is to look at how we can actually help you ensure that students are coming out ready for a challenged world, a VUCA world, where we have all sorts of climate anxiety, but actually how employable are we in the low carbon net zero future, which is definitely approaching us fast. And also aligning with social agendas like period poverty, and really thanks to our Scottish colleagues for leading on this and developing a whole set of resources on how we can support and empower women and girls in this space. It's a global issue. Next slide, Fiona, please. you know, we are your voice, and we're here to empower your voice. So there's a whole world of activity that goes on under that umbrella, you know, with loads of blogs coming out in the year from all sorts of really thoughtful, interesting people. Do have a look at the blogs. Lots of profile for what we're doing with you. And feeding into all a real myriad of campaigns as this agenda grows and widens and builds into it the environmental agendas, into the social, bringing in social and ethical economic agendas as well. We really want to really work on the whole ethical side of you know, college and university current accounts and divestment in the future, but also ensuring your voice is heard into consultations. Now we're on plastics, on governance, Northern Ireland climate future strategy, etc. So a real world of activity in there. And we're really grateful to particularly to the fellows for helping us find those voices, but do please respond to those consultations when they come up. Next slide, Fiona. Gosh, well, you know, it was a real blunt trauma, wasn't it? Having to rethink key things that we do, like the conference. But you know, there's been a real silver lining here in really being able to open up our get-togethers into a virtual space, but also by, as Jim was talking about, just broadening the diversity of the voices within FE that often can't come to a conference, the voices in the wider parts of sustainability in the UK and Ireland, but actually the global voices, and connecting and learning. And you know, to have over 1,000 registrations and many students at that virtual event, you know, last year was so empowering. And I do encourage you to sign up for this year's. It's a one-day event, so it's much more accessible and doable. 5 days, even we thought at the end of it was just quite a lot. But well done, Fiona and colleagues, for that. Green Gown Awards took a hit, but we managed to delay the application deadlines, and I ended up with 74 finalists, which is just superb, and still 100 judges. So thank you to all the members that represented TSNs or COPs or fellow groups or board in judging. So thank you for that. And a whole world of webinars that we had, and even just webinars to allow us to connect during the real trauma time of the lockdown as people, as humans, but also to keep the agendas alive as we found our colleagues around us and our leaders around us really grappling with how do you keep a university or college afloat during the pandemic. But the agenda has not gone away, so it's actually here to stay forever. Next slide, please, Fiona. Really pleased that the second annual report of the Sustainability Leadership Scorecard actually reflected a growth of 69% more institutions reporting. And it really is growing from strength to strength. And we're really grateful to our partners in AUDE, you know, for working so well with us on that. So it's a great coming together of those two entities. But actually, we're actually now looking at a new software platform to improve the functionality and the ease with which you can fill that in. So keep your eye on the SLS, but it's definitely not going away. And you know, out of the pandemic has come this great program, which we're in partnership with SOS and change agents on Kickstart. You know, bringing young people who are vulnerable, who are on the edges of being excluded from work long term, into you know, real proper quality placements. And we're using that opportunity to really bring in a new diversity into the sector, which is much needed. That's a recurring theme, and we're delighted with, you know, SOS and change agents leading that. So thank you to them. And you know, net zero and targets, it's all become, you know, quite out there and engaging, but some, you know, can quickly think offsetting. And so you're working with the COP26 universities group and many scientists and academics from all around the UK and beyond, you know, creating principles of offsetting, because that could be a very slippery slope for us all. And then on the back of those principles, creating the Carbon Coalition, which is a real sector-owned, sector-led, highly scientifically and academically credible approach to offsetting. And there's thank you to those that are working on the pilot of that, and look out, you know, for the launch of that program more openly next year. So Fiona, next slide, please. So I'm just gonna have a quick drink here. I mean, you are our lifeblood, and finding new ways to connect you and to link you, and to identify the agendas which you really need us to support you with is critical. So having, you know, almost 50 in this traumatic year, almost 50, you know, regional branch communities of practice TSNs was really good. And thank you to all of the people that just tirelessly volunteer to think, right, let's have another transport meeting, let's have another whatever, and leading that. And we actually, you know, we value what you do and recognize it. And, you know, we've actually given a value of nearly 85,000 pounds worth of commitment. And, you know, we do recognize that, and we recognize that often as you become evolved into EAEC fellows. You know, so finding a way of recognizing and empowering you doing that is critical for us, but also finding a way of connecting all of these activities and agencies that are around us that pick on parts of sustainability. And it's critical that you know, we help ensure it's connected, that it's aligned, that it's coherent, that it's building on what already exists. That's often not the case. So with HEPA, with Healthy Universities, with WRAP, Alder's great, and we're just about to start a similar dialogue with the new Civic Universities Network, which we all see as connected to sustainability. So it's critical that their approach is connected to what we're doing and doesn't fragment and confuse. So building that strong community is at our heart. Thank you. Next one. Really pleased the Sustainable Development Goal Accord. It continues to be signed by, you know, presidents and vice chancellors and principals all over the world, and we bring that collective voice to the UN at the high-level political forum, which is in July, and that will continue this July. We've actually reformatted the reporting to, we hope, make it up to date, given the existence of things like the Times Higher reporting, but also to ensure that it's really meeting your needs. And out of the review, it has come a whole new set of approaches to case studies, which really will hopefully be accessible, bite-sized insights to how others are implementing it, you know, sustainable development goals into curriculum, into leadership, into stakeholder engagement, whatever. So look out for that resource. And actually at the high-level political forum, you know, again, raising the profile and the value of sustainability and the actions that universities and colleges all around the world are bringing to that on the back of the high-level political forum in New York, which will be virtual this year. We're actually hosting again the Green Gown Awards, the International Green Gown Awards. So really profiling, getting recognition that you deserve for all that you do. And our relationship with the UN grows and grows, and actually we are the Secretariat for Race to Zero. So you know, we run in partnership with UNEP in Nairobi and Second Nature in North America. We're the Secretariat for Race to Zero, and there's over 700 signatories now of Race to Zero, committing to a targeted approach, consistent approach to actually, you know, climate impact reductions. So that will then feed into COP26, which we're excited about. So do look at signing your college, your university, if you haven't already, to Race to Zero and be part of that global UN activity. And thanks to my team for all they do. And there's a new website coming out to support signatories and those considering signing, so look out for that. And then finally, you know, we're at the heart of trying to connect, you know, across the UN and across wider university college society, you know, how we feed into COP26. It's a unique opportunity. It'll really be a critical point of updating Paris and setting the new bar high. So we're working with the Cabinet Office and various youth groups on ensuring there is a connected college university education space, but also resourcing coming out of that as well. Next slide, please, Fiona. Scotland is inspirational as ever. So well done, Scotland and the team up there. Last year, April, saw the launch of the new 3-year programme. And already we've got some great output. We've got the Travel Better package. If you haven't seen it, this is a great opportunity to use it, to use its calculator, its questionnaire on how, you know, making informed decisions, but also really starting to change, you know, to take that next step in how our academics or our researchers or our students travel. So a real challenger and positive stimulator to think how we travel. Scotland conference was bigger than ever and virtual, so really strong program. And it's lovely to see, you know, new network coming out on well-being, but also on student leadership and new guidance on you know, focusing on student leadership in this agenda. So it's only the start, it's only the first year from Scotland, so great things coming out of that. So have a look on the website or the annual report if you want to read more about the Scotland output. And finally, as you can imagine, our own footprint has decreased by 68%. We did actually do some early calculations, working out averaging on, you know, staff impacts at home, and we'll be continuing that because we're now moving to a permanently home-based organisation. We do that very positively to embrace the flexibility, you know, the personal and the professional, but also the recruitment flexibility that working from home brings. So I think that's my last slide. Is that right, Fiona? Great. So I'm delighted to hand over to David Duncan, our tireless treasurer. So David, over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Ian. If we could just move on to the next one, Fiona. Thank you. So last year, obviously, was a difficult year for all of us, a difficult year for EAUC, and we did make a loss, as it says there, of just over £41,000. Mainly that the loss came from loss of income from events, which obviously were badly affected by the COVID situation. There was also some challenge around attracting sponsorship, which again is pretty explicable, but we tried our best to offset that by judicious use of the furlough scheme, savings on travel, etc. as well. If we can move on to the next slide, this just explains where our overall income comes from as an association. As Ian said earlier, it's pleasing to note that membership levels are holding up well across the FE sector and the HE sector, with some other members as well. I think it's important to point out that we are paying very careful attention through the Audit and Finance Committee to the risks affecting the association and considering how those impact on our finances. And we're also working very hard to identify new sources of income through the Income Growth Working Group, which Professor John French has been chairing. And that has other attendant benefits. It broadens the services that we offer to members. It addresses needs that I know I, as a senior manager, face every day in the world of sustainability, and adds value from our memberships of the association. The good news, if we could just move on to the next slide, is that things are looking up in 2021. We do have significant reserves still, and we're currently projecting a 14k surplus by the end of this financial year. It's worth saying there are still vulnerabilities, especially around some of the live events, but I think there's every reason to be confident in EAUC's future, particularly through those new income streams as they come through. That's all really I wanted to say, Jim, but I'd just like to end with special thanks to Fiona Goodwin, who has done a fantastic job looking after our money and many other things besides in the association over the past 18 months of difficult times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, David and Ian, for taking us through that important part of the AGM process. I'd now like to just say a little bit about the Climate Commission. Back in November 2019, if you can remember, back in those pre-pandemic days when we were face to face and enjoying that form of interaction, well, that's when the EAUC took on our biggest challenge to date. An unprecedented partnership was formed where the EAUC brought together Universities UK, Guild HE, and the Association of Colleges to launch the Climate Commission for UK higher and further education for students and leaders. This was in, I guess, recognition that there had to be a sector-wide response to the climate crisis and that we needed to work together if we were to achieve meaningful change. And I think one can say that we have had some real impact as we move forward on this really important piece of work. If you remember, this was a commission that's purpose was to report on the higher education and further education engagement and ambition and commitment that would be presented at the COP. And of course, we know that that has now moved to COP in November of this year. So we initially thought of it as a one-year engagement, but extended to 2. And we may well continue our involvement as the lead agency in the Climate Commission for another year. We had an ambitious program across 2020 where we gathered evidence from many different components of the higher and further education sector on what institutions could do, will do, and how quickly they will do it. We brought key stakeholders into our discussions. We engaged with 63 institutions directly and held over 19 events to raise awareness, to bring together understanding and to give momentum to the combined sector's engagement with the Climate Commission. If I could have the next slide, please. One of the key outputs for the Commission is the Climate Action Roadmap for Further Education Colleges. This unique roadmap was co-created with 13 colleges from the Climate Commission Council and was supported by the NAUS Group, a consultancy, and it brought together a series of case studies from EAUC FE members. If I could have the next slide, please. This is a schematic of what that roadmap looks like. The roadmap takes you on a journey. So you can map your institution's starting point, whether you are an emerging, engaging institution, whether you are established, or indeed whether you are leading in the further education sector. It sets out a path to your next step and estimates time and resources that may be required so that you can plan your journey effectively. Since the launch of the roadmap, the Climate Commission has engaged with 2/3 of FE colleges. And the next step, of course, is to make sure that residual third are engaged with the roadmap. And if you are in the FE sector, please ask if your college is using the roadmap. And if not, why not? And encourage the uptake by your institution. I'd now like to hand over to a very important colleague, Manveer Gill, who is the EAUC Student Climate Commissioner. And just to remind you, the Climate Commission is for students and leaders in our combined sector. And Manveer and colleagues from our fellow organisations within the Commission have been fantastic advocates for the work of the Commission. Manveer, over to you.
Thanks, Jim. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm a student commissioner and I'm the EAUC representative, and I'm one of 4 student commissioners. We've ensured that students are at the heart of the Climate Commission right from the start, and it is our future and our education that's in your hands. So that's really important. We have, as I said, 4 student climate commissioners from each of the Commission's founding partners, and we engage the wider student body through a variety of activities and ensuring when the Climate Commission speak at external events that we have a student climate commissioner speaking as well. To date, we've engaged over 450 students and we continue to increase this. We've got a lot in the pipeline. A key activity in 2020 was coordinating a collated response to UNESCO's Futures of Education. It's important that the youth voice feeds into key decisions and policy making. And our next activity will be engaging students to feed into the Conference of Youth, which then feeds into COP26. So the student climate commissioners will be running workshops over the summer. And if you do know of any students that would like to get involved, it's a real opportunity for the youth voice to get involved at COP26. And I'll say a little bit more about that on the next slide. Next slide, please. We also work closely with our student voice partners, and this enables us to communicate with a much wider student network, but also we can bring opportunities and news from our student voice partners to the students on the council. We're presenting at the Enactus Leadership Summit later this month, and we're planning with Enactus to hold workshops with students that I mentioned whilst we were on the previous slide. We're also feeding into broader sectoral movements and campaigns. And only yesterday, myself and a fellow student commissioner were in a meeting aiming to define the next steps for the Future Proofed campaign, which is a follow-up or a sister campaign to the Let's Go Zero campaign. And that's all about transitioning schools to net zero and advocating for reforms to the national syllabus and skills development plans. There's a lot going on. Next slide, please. Another key output of the Climate Commission is the Climate Action Toolkit for the HE sector, which was launched at the Universities UK conference. This provides institutions signposting to help you on your net zero journey, and it's full of great examples of best practice across the sector. Following the success of the FE Climate Action Roadmap, we're also going to develop a roadmap for HE2, which has come out after discussions that we've realized we've got a great set of resources, but institutions can really be at different places along their journey. So we're looking to support that. In the coming months, the Climate Commission will be working to develop a sector-wide agreed standard, including consistent language to be clear on scopes and reporting. And we'll be working with EAUC fellows to develop a draft, and then we'll be consulting with the wider membership to go across the sector through our Climate Commission partners. With COP26 coming up later this year, this is the opportunity for the sector to show real leadership and action for their students. But we need this beyond COP, so we will continue to provide leadership and support for the sector. I encourage you all to engage with the Climate Commission, use the roadmaps and toolkit, and most importantly, engage with your students. All the details are on our website, and if you do have further questions, then please get in touch. Yeah, we'd love to work with you. I'll now pass it back to Jim for any questions.
So Manvir, thank you very much indeed for all your work as a student climate commissioner. It's been fantastic to see you and your fellow student commissioners so fully engaged and so fully committed to making the Climate Commission a success. So thank you for that. As the big blue letters on the screens suggest, it's now the opportunity for any questions that colleagues may have. You've heard about the year of the EAUC, the work that we're doing. You've heard of the financial position, and just now the work of the Climate Commission. And before all of that, our engagement to enhance our diversity as a organisation, but also the contribution we make to the wider sector. Any or all of those, or indeed anything else that is relevant to the AGM, now's the time for any questions. The chat box is there for questions, but equally, if you'd like to raise your hand and unmute yourself, a question could be asked as well, and we'll try and spot a participant hand going up. Just scanning the list, please let me know if you see a hand go up or anyone unmuting. I can't see the full set of members in attendance, but I'm not seeing anything in the chat, nor am I seeing any hand raised. So pausing for a moment, just to make sure there aren't any questions. Emma has asked, thank you, Emma, for the question, asking about plans for the new strategy. Ian, can I pass to you for a response to this one, please?
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Emma. Yes, so what is the new normal? It might be starting to show itself, but it's early days. So the plan for the new strategy is that we will start that process at the beginning of the year. We'll actually draw up the plans for it in autumn. And it's very much an engaging activity. So we'll start off in early days with the board and staff, and then bring fellows into that dialogue as to what the next 5 years should look like. We did delay the process You might have seen that, but we delayed it because we needed to be clearer and more confident on what the lie of the land was like, what new habits, not what new opportunities would actually consolidate and show themselves. And we very much do see and are very excited by the wider embracing of climate action across not just the sector, but across the governments of the UK and Ireland. So there is a new world forming, and we have to ensure that you know, your voice is heard in our response to that and grabbing those opportunities. So there will be a formal process taking us through, starting from the board and staff at the end of this year, going right through to next year, with the new strategy being proposed or presented to you at the end of the year. Jim, or anything to add to that, or Fiona?
I think that's a very comprehensive response, Ian. It's an exciting time to think about how we plot the right strategic engagement for whatever new normal turns out to be. We need to be agile, we need to be horizon scanning, when we occasionally need to take stock in the process of leading to our new strategy, and to listen to the voices of our colleagues across the EAUC's membership. As Ian has said, it's really important that we hear those voices, and I know how engaged members are, so I'm sure we'll have lots of helpful insights and indeed challenge as we think through what that next strategy will actually be. Fiona, is there anything you would like to add to that? No, okay.
No, I think that's fine.
Okay. Now, I have not seen any hands go up in the participants list, and I can't see a new question. Fiona, are there any others that you've spotted? So if we've exhausted the questions, well, thank you very much, colleagues. Moving on to our, I think, our concluding slide. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank our retiring members, to Simon and to Peter, after 5 years service on the board. A long service medal, I'm sure, is going to each for their huge engagement and contribution. They've really made a huge difference. And I'd also note, as I said earlier, Michelle, who stood down as Scotland Branch Convenor. Thank you again for your fantastic contributions. As no other business has been raised, I'm now in a position to close the formality of the AGM. But as the slide in front of you is asking, we really want to keep that dialogue with you, our members, really active, really alive. Want to hear what you think we need to be doing. We want you to be engaged as fully as you're able through all the different ways that the AUC provides services and opportunities. We need to hear from you. We love hearing from you, and all of the ways that we organise that can provide feedback and input to what we collectively do on our collective behalf is there on screen. So do keep in regular contact with all of these different elements of the EAUC family. It's very important to us, and I hope it's important for you too. So as I bring us to an end of the this morning's proceedings, can I thank my board colleagues for all their engagement with us? Can I again welcome our new board members, and for the first time ever, our associates, a really important innovation. Really look forward to working with our new associates. Can I extend my thanks to all the staff of the EAUC? It has been a remarkably difficult year. You have been fantastic in engaging with all the challenges that have been put in front of you. Thank you. You are the beating heart of the EAUC. And what you have done in this difficult year has always been of high quality. and has really helped to reach out and support organisations and members. So thank you. And I'd like to thank our members for their continuing support for the work of the EAUC as we collectively move to enhance the place of sustainability in higher and further education, and to create opportunities for those who will be the students of tomorrow coming into high quality, sustainability focused institutions who will help create the skills and the knowledge in that group for them to go forward, hopefully into a sustainability career, but if not, into a career in which they take knowledge and understanding about the importance of sustainability into whatever it is that they do. So with that, colleagues, can I say a final thank you and say have a very safe rest of the day. That, I think, concludes our business for the day. So thank you, David. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Ian. And I shall now pass back to Fiona for any last comments.
Thank you, Jim. And that's the end of the AGM. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
And the recording, will that be available?
Yes, the recording will be available on the website under our AGM papers.
So that's it, folks. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Time for some coffee.